Stearic acid or octadecanoic acid is the main ingredient in the formula for Edison brown wax cylinders. It is a white, flaky mass. Some stearic acid today is made from palm tree wax, and originally, such as this kind of stearic acid, it is made from the rendered fat of cud-chewing animals, such as cows. We are melting the stearic acid, and that is the first step in making the Edison cylinder formula. The person responsible for developing it in Edison's laboratory in late 1889 was Jonas Ellsworth, who had already conducted over 1,020 experiments to get to this point. At first, natural waxes were tried. As you can see, the stearic acid is thoroughly melted at this point. And now we are taking a reading at around 130 degrees centigrade. So we can now add some of the hydrated aluminum. Hydrated aluminum is made of water, aluminum, and sodium hydroxide. Aluminum dissolves readily in sodium hydroxide. This is filtered several times. What we are making here is an aluminum sodium soap. That is the first step in making the cylinders. As you can see, as time goes by, there's actually 16 additions of around 40 milliliters of solution to make the metallic soap Edison cylinder wax. So we are just adding an addition. As you can tell, it starts out clear and becomes browner as the additions are added and the melting point increases. We started at 130 degrees centigrade and finish at 260 degrees centigrade. Now we are adding the tempering agent, and we had reduced the temperature of the wax down to 232 degrees centigrade, which is 450, to add the paraffin wax. Ceresin, beeswax, and paraffin, they answer equally well in the production of brown wax. It is the temper. It allows it to cut, and it evenly connects together the molecules of stearic acid and sodium stearate and aluminum stearate. Into about 1896, less than 3 million wax cylinders were made. The wax is now done. As you notice, there's no air bubbles or anything, and it is quiescent. So next we are going to take a sample of the wax to check to make sure that it cuts. It has to have a little curly shaving come off of the compound. And it's pretty good. So we heat the mold in the oven at 375 degrees for 1 hour. Now we are going to pour the compound into the mold. The compound is heated to about 450 degrees centigrade and poured into the mold. There are no original molds for brown wax that exist today. They were destroyed during the World War I and 2 scrap drives. These molds are manufactured by the North American Phonograph Company. You can make appointments to come to our facility and see this process being done. There are very few places in the world that make Edison cylinder blanks. A steady, even flow into the mold and overpouring is necessary for good production of cylinders. You'll notice we also used a filter to make sure that particulate matter does not get into the mold. We have just set a timer. I know it's hard to read on the screen, but we have set a timer for 70 minutes, which is the time it takes for the wax to congeal in the mold. We are about 30 minutes into the setting of the compound in the mold, and you notice it's hard enough to retain its shape, but it's still quite hot, and there's a little liquid to it yet at this point. So now it is time to demold the cylinder. So that is our next step. If you notice, the cylinder record is quite large, which facilitates in the shrinkage of the compound, which is about 2%. So now we are going to turn the mold over after we remove the aluminum pan. And removing the bottom of the mold first. We are screwing the mold backwards and removing the little ring that separates the wax portion from the base of the mold. We're making sure that the starting spirals are clean. As you see, the surface of the record is very nice. The mold has a double helix spiral, which facilitates the record to be removed from the mold just as a nut and bolt. This increases the working time that one can leave the record on the mold mandrel. Smooth bores have a shorter amount of time that they can be worked with. Next, a wooden core is put in the center, and a 10-minute timer is set. After the 10 minutes, the record contracts onto the wooden core, and the casing or jacket falls off of the blank. The jacket is taken off of the blank. This is the rough casting on the wooden core. If you notice, it has a very nice surface. And you'll even see a helix spiral in the outside of the mold. And this helps the wax, as it goes into the mold, spread out evenly. You notice the spiral core in the mold. What this does, the spiral core in the blank, what this does is it makes it easier to ream the record, and not only that, it displaces dust particles on the mandrel of the phonograph when one slides the blank onto the phonograph to record or play back sound. Next, we are going to trim the blank to length. We insert an Edison standard phonograph mandrel into the blank. It does not wobble, and it stops at a good point inside of the blank. The blank will be marked where to cut and trim the left side of the blank. We are going to use a back saw to do this in a miter box. Okay, so we have trimmed the left end of the blank. This is rough trimming. You can see the spiral core inside the blank. If you have original blanks in the 1890s, they also are made similar. We want to have the blank as flush with the left end as possible. There will be some further machining that will bring it to the right just slightly. We are checking the length to make sure that it is at least 5 inches long. That's what we want the rough blank to be, is 5 inches long. A finished normal blank is 4 1/4, but these may be used for masters, and you get more time on the record, so we make them longer. The average blank that we make is 120 millimeters long, or around 4 3/4 inches long. So now we are trimming off the right end of the blank using the miter box saw, just as before. So here is a rough trimmed blank. I am looking to make sure that there are no dendrites or defects in the wax, which can be told after being trimmed on the ends, and there is none. We have rough chamfered the end of this blank to have a rounded over left or leading end and a flat but semi-rounded right end. It shows you a little bit of making it finer looking on the end. We want to take off the fin that is on the inside of the blank and round over the edge and make it a fine finish. Just using an ordinary knife. We are using a piece of leather to give just an extra sheen on the end, to give that familiar, fine finished look that you would expect on original Edison and Columbia brown wax blanks. It's hard to believe that a 19th century product is made and sold in 2018. This is at the North American Phonograph Company. So now we are starting the working of the left end of the blank. So as before, we are taking the fin off the interior part of the blank and then making the end coved or beveled. This is the rough beveling of the end of the blank. So again, we're taking a piece of leather and polishing up the end. Kind of a recap on finishing the end a little bit. making a bevel on the end, taking the fin off of the inside of the end of the blank, and rounding it over. Done by hand. After this, the blank is given a rough shave from 2.3 inches down to 2.2 inches. So here you can see a little bit about how the rough casting, the end is finished on it. This is the right end, or known as the titled end of the cylinder. And this is the non-titled end, or the right end of the cylinder. Now we are just giving it a finished shave after we have taken several layers off the wax. This is the final shave of the blank. As I said, it went from 2.3 inches down to 2.2 inches. Each time we make a pass on the fine shaving, we brush off the swarf. These are some finished blanks that we make here at the North American Phonograph Company. Very accurate and historically perfect blanks like the original Edison blanks. Thank you for watching. These blanks are made in 2018 at the North American Phonograph Company. You can email us at northamercianphono@gmail.com. Thank you for watching.